So let us get into the review of Elvis. This is all directed by Baz Luhrmann and starring Austin Butler and Tom Hanks. I want to say overall I like the film. And I like some of the directions that Baz Luhrmann took the movie. When I initially heard that Baz Luhrmann was doing a Elvis biopic, I had mixed feelings about it. I actually like Baz Luhrmann's movies. I fell in love with Baz Luhrmann in high school when Moulin Rouge came out. I was 18 when it came out. I saw it in theaters and adored it. I thought it was such a great movie. And I didn't think I would see something like that would be ostensibly a period piece, but implementing songs of the current day and meld it pretty well without it be feeling awkward. It actually really enhanced the movie a lot. And then there's the visual bombast and the kinetic energy that the movie had that I really enjoyed. His previous movie was Romeo and Juliet, and I did not like that at all. I just never liked that movie. Maybe one day we'll review that and I'll explain why. But yeah, I just never liked that interpretation of Romeo and Juliet. He then also did Australia, which was bad. That was a bad movie. And he then did Gatsby. I think is it just Gatsby or The Great Gatsby? I'm not sure, but he did an adaptation of The Great Gatsby with Leonardo DiCaprio, and then Elvis is next. And his style is very flashy. Lots of camera movement, lots of color, computer effects, like really an eye-popping image that honestly could work with Elvis Presley, but if it's done too much, it could look really gaudy, especially when compared to Elvis Presley to a certain extent. And what he did in this is that he showed restraint, which is something I thought I would never hear myself say when it comes to Baz Luhrmann, but he actually showed a lot of restraint. He only used the bombastic editing process on key scenes or to signify a change in time or a change in scenery, and that's it. He didn't pollute the screen so much with a lot of noise, and that actually worked well with this movie because this movie, unlike, let's say, Moulin Rouge or Gatsby, you are supposed to believe that the most dynamic and most interesting and flashy thing in this movie is the central character, that is Elvis Presley. And Baz Luhrmann did a great job in interpreting that and making the movie into that. I personally like the fact that he remained accurate to what the sets and the places that he used looked like. He didn't over-embellish, which is what I was kind of afraid of in this. Because in a biopic, unless you're doing something stylistically very different, you don't want to over-embellish too much, or else it just seems inauthentic. And that really wasn't what this movie was gonna be in this. Like he didn't do an I'm not there. I'm not there. The thing that makes it different is the fact that about, I think, 15 different actors plays the Bob Dylan role, but in in different times. And that's what made that movie wholly unique, and I think probably the best musical biopic ever made. That's not what Elvis was doing in this. Elvis was a straight biopic from the moment Elvis started to the moment he died. Spoiler alert. But come on, you should know better than that at this point. So I really like the decisions that Baz Luhrmann used when shooting the film and the color that is used in the movie. I think it was perfect the way it is. I actually really enjoyed the way it looked. It looked showy, but it didn't look messy. It didn't look tacky, which is something I was really afraid of when I started watching the movie, especially in the beginning, because it was like a really showy, glitzy kind of computer effect, and it was just to open to close the movie, and I'm happy about that. Like, make the most visually dynamic thing Elvis Presley, and that's exactly what he did, and I'm very happy he decided to do that, because anything more would have been overkill in this movie. Let's get to the writing in the movie. It's good. I would say it's good for a biopic, but I think that's kind of damned praise. That seems kind of a backwards insult to a certain extent, so it's kind of unfair. But it is good for a biopic to a certain extent. The problem with biopics, in most circumstances, is that they think all they have to do is just say, this is how they started, this is how it ended. Or this is them in this period of time, this is at the end of this period of time. And that often, unless there's a great performance behind it, that often doesn't make a good biopic. A good biopic, or a great biopic, I should say, has a theme to it. Something more than just, this is Johnny Cash in the beginning, in the middle, in the end. Like, there is more going on that I think the film is trying to say about the character and the person it's about than this is how it started, this is how it ended. And Elvis does one key thing right here. And the theme basically is Elvis's influences, which a lot of biopics don't get into, pretty much. They just want to get into how the person started, where he came from, and how he went from the rise and into the fall. And there are some biopics that do it quite well, and it's usually because of a very good performance, or that the principal group or person is just that compelling and interesting that it propels that movie to be a lot better than maybe it deserves to be. But Elvis does I would say it doesn't do it's not big into it, but it does a little bit more than what most biopics do, which I liked. I appreciated that when watching it, to find that he had it was obvious if you knew Elvis that he really liked gospel and rhythm and blues. That was obvious. Everyone knew that, but to really show it in the movie as to how it became that way, whether it's real or not, and it's not made up or interpreted a different way, is one thing, but it really showed the influences on him, especially in the beginning and towards like the middle of the movie. That was a smart thing to do in this, to make it much less of a standard biopic. So the writing is good, and yeah, that's all of that at this point. Let's get to performances. When this came out in the beginning in the middle of the year, I think it was in the summer, all I kept hearing is the performance of Austin Butler was magnificent. It was really good, and I have to agree. Austin Butler did a fantastic job in this movie. When it comes to doing a great job, sometimes in a biopic, it is one of two things. Do you envelope yourself in the role to where it's almost hard to distinguish if you are the actor or if you are the subject? Or in the case of, let's say, Walk the Line, Joaquin Phoenix looked nothing like Johnny Cash. He was not going to act or sound exactly like Johnny Cash. But did he show the ethos of Johnny Cash? Did he represent it well, and did he get the character and the person to a point where you feel he gets it, where you feel like he's representing Johnny Cash in a way that is very true to what he is. So in that sense, it does feel like Johnny Cash. Austin Butler does both in this. There are times in this movie where I had to remind myself that's not actually Elvis. that is a that is hard to do in this, like without copious amounts of makeup or computer generation at this point. And he just nailed the mannerisms, the look, and the way that Elvis is throughout his career. Am I a big fan of Elvis? I liked Elvis's music, so I'm not a huge fan of Elvis. But from what I've seen of his stuff, like he got the mannerisms down right. He got the walk, the way he acts, the way he sings. Oh, the singing! Oh my God, he is so good in this. This is the thing with this movie that really cemented my feelings on Bohemian Rhapsody, okay? People praise Bohemian Rhapsody to death and think Rami Malek did such a great job in that movie, and I can't disagree more. And it cemented it further when I watched Austin Butler as Elvis in this, because in this, he's not mimicking, he's not playing a role. He is embodying the character. He is embodying Elvis Presley. He has the mannerisms and everything down pat, and even if it's not one-to-one accurate, you feel like you're watching Elvis Presley. Whereas with Rami Malek in Bohemian Rhapsody, I couldn't help but look at Rami Malek saying, okay, you're acting, you're playing Freddie Mercury. You're lip syncing Freddie Mercury. You're not embodying the character. I don't buy you as Freddie Mercury. And immediately, like within 15 minutes, I bought Austin Butler as Elvis Presley. And the fact that it continued throughout the film as Elvis ages, and it did not feel like a distraction when I'm watching it, going, yeah, he doesn't look that great, that old. He nailed it from beginning to end, and I cannot praise his performance enough. It is a great performance. Probably one of the all-time best. Jamie Foxx's performance as Ray Charles is better, if I really want to squint hard. And I think Cate Blanchett's performance as Bob Dylan is better too. But man, is it close. I still can't get over how good this performance is. How great this performance is. It is fantastic. I can't emphasize enough how much he nails this movie. He nails the role. And just for that alone, I will recommend this movie. Even if you're not an Elvis, okay. I mean, I wouldn't say sit through 2.5 hours of this movie if you're not an Elvis fan. I wouldn't say that. But definitely watch a scene or two of him as Elvis, and then look up some. I will say I haven't checked it, but look up some archival footage of Elvis Presley. Like do the Aloha with Elvis special, or maybe a concert film of Elvis, and look at that, and look at Austin Butler. And I'm going to be fairly sure you're going to look at that and go, oh yeah, he nailed this. And he did a fantastic job. I can't praise it enough. Tom Hanks, on the other hand, whoo boy. Yeah, Tom Hanks as Colonel Tom Parker is the exact opposite. He is a distraction in this movie. And the thing that bothered me, a lot of things bothered me about Tom Hanks in this movie, but the thing that bothered me is that basically Tom Hanks played the character as if it had no depth to it. I don't know if that's the writing's problem. I'm not sure about that. But Tom Hanks played him with a sneer and this like overtly evil, cunning, and despicable person that anyone within their own mind would look at him and go, I want nothing to do with this guy. He looks shady. So I couldn't believe for a second that someone like Elvis Presley, or like the character in this movie, Elvis Presley, would want to associate with him. So the believability that Tom Parker could convince Presley to be on his side is the thing that I just could not buy, because Hanks just did not do a good job making him what I believe would have to be some kind of charming person to actually have someone do that. But I just could not fathom to believe that anybody would want to associate with Tom Parker in this movie. And I think that's partly the writing, but I think it's mostly Hanks in this. The other thing is that the movie kept saying that Tom Parker was from West Virginia. And yes, you learn throughout the film that, spoilers, that Tom Parker is not from West Virginia. He's actually Dutch. Do yourself a favor. If go ahead and look up Tom Hanks' performance in this, and tell me if he sounds like somebody who could be mistaken for somebody from West Virginia. I'm not a world-weary person. I haven't been through all 50 states. But I'm fairly certain no one sounds like that in West Virginia. And I have a really hard time believing that all these people thought, oh yeah, he's from West Virginia, when he barely, oh God. It is bad. It is, okay. Here's the key problem I have with Tom Parker in this. Tom Hanks' performance should not be the performance that chews the scenery in this movie. It shouldn't be. It should be Elvis Presley. It should be Austin Butler. And the fact that Austin Butler's performance has more nuance and has much more believability than Tom Parker, where you wouldn't think that Elvis should be the one that's chewing the scenery. I mean, for God's sakes, he shoots a TV at some point in the damn movie. That is where I was left dumbfounded by the decisions that they made with Tom Parker. I think he was poorly cast. He may very well be poorly written. And the decision to make him the principal character and narrator was, I think, a bad move in this. I will get to that in spoilers when it comes to that stuff right there. But overall, I liked Elvis, and I liked it because of the restraint that Baz Luhrmann took while having some flashes in it, and with Butler's excellent performance. I mean, excellent performance. I cannot praise it enough. For those reasons, I can recommend Elvis. But there are big flaws, and I will get that in spoilers.